How did one encounter change her life forever? A terrible mistake. That's what she had nearly made on the eve of Christmas. At first, it had seemed like she was doing everything right. She laced up her heavy leather boots, pulled on her expensive shearling coat, adjusted her hat, slid behind the wheel of her black GMC Yukon, and set off to the other side of the city to deal with one brazen, cunning gold digger. Her name was Teresa Lawrence. She had one son, whom she had raised on her own. For 30 years, she had lived only for him. Teresa had worked tirelessly, built a business, multiplied her wealth, all for the sake of her son. He was her pride, her entire world. And now this boy, her boy, had met some Allison. Just an ordinary girl living in a cheap apartment, with a small child in tow no less. Teresa saw right through her, that Allison was a predator. Not only had she wrapped her claws around her son, but she was planning to take him away, away from his mother, away from everything she had built for him. So Teresa took action. She found out where Allison lived and decided to have a little chat with her, or intimidate her, or bribe her. Whatever worked. The main thing was to save her son from this snake before it was too late, because he was already talking nonsense about marriage. Teresa's sharp-featured, stern face, lined with deep wrinkles, could have rivaled that of a hardened naval officer. Her dark eyes gleamed with determination, like a she-wolf ready to protect her cub at any cost. On the way, she stopped at Whole Foods, picked up a few apples, some pears, and, almost as an afterthought, a baby rattle. It was Christmas, after all. She had to start the conversation somehow. She wasn't some heartless predator, was she? Teresa knocked on the door, pushed it open, and stepped inside like a storm. With unwavering confidence, she took off her boots and coat. In a cold, formal tone, she wished Allison a happy holiday. She had already opened her mouth to begin her speech, but then her eyes landed on the playpen. There in the middle of the room stood a small, fair-haired boy. "Who is that?" Allison's voice trembled. She stood pale, almost frozen, as if she were afraid of Teresa. And rightly so. Teresa Lawrence stepped closer to the playpen and held out the rattle. And suddenly, the child burst into such joyful laughter that Teresa actually flinched. The little boy grabbed the toy with his tiny hand and started shifting his weight from one foot to the other in his fluffy socks, gripping the edge of the playpen for balance. His movements were clumsy, almost as if he were trying to dance. He waved the rattle excitedly, his bright blue eyes locked onto Teresa's face, squealing with pure delight. For some reason, she was the one bringing him so much joy. He stretched his arms toward her, reaching with all his might, laughing with his mouth wide open, two tiny baby teeth visible. And that was when Teresa made her mistake. She picked him up, instinctively. The child immediately wrapped his arms tightly around her neck, his small body radiating warmth even through her expensive shearling coat. Then he started patting her face with his little fingers, gently tapping the rattle against her forehead, babbling in a soft, contented murmur. And Teresa started murmuring back. With a foolish, soft voice she didn't even recognize as her own, Teresa murmured, "And who is this little magician? Who's this fluffy little teddy bear? Oh, you tiny bundle of happiness." Her heart clenched, sweetly, sharply, so much so that she held her breath. The baby seemed to have fallen in love with her. He clung to her, as if afraid she would disappear. He didn't want to go back to his mother, and he smelled of happiness, of love, of heaven. If angels had a scent, they would smell just like small children. And suddenly Teresa didn't want to give him back. She would have given up everything she had for this child. Love. A single moment. Bang. And that was it. Hot tears spilled down her wrinkled cheeks. And after that, everything became obvious. Teresa Lawrence insisted that her son get married. He wasn't used to following her orders, but this time he didn't argue. He loved Laura and her little boy. Through persuasion, promises, and near blackmail, Teresa convinced the young family to move into her grand house. But she hardly interfered in their lives, and so they lived peacefully. Her attention was consumed by only one thing, little Pete. They became inseparable. It was love, real boundless love, the kind that changes a person. And so, a woman almost made a terrible mistake. Or perhaps she narrowly avoided one. Who's to say? One thing was certain. She had found her Christmas gift. Christmas is a special day, and its gifts are special too.